All right, welcome, boys and girls, to another episode of the IDP Plus podcast. And tonight, myself, Dynasty Santa, Steve Thomason, and my handsome co-host Matt Record at MRecord21 have a great show in store where we're going to be talking through some of the top free agents that are affecting both IDP and offense. So this is a true plus episode for the folks tonight here, Matt.
Yeah, IDP Plus, we officially changed over and all the
Yeah.
socials everywhere. We are IDP Plus now. Get on board. So yeah, we're figuring what a time to start talking about free agents. This is where my team is terrible, so there's only good things that can happen in free agency.
Right.
Start think about next year. Last year, who even won? Who remembers? Let's talk about the future.
Absolutely. So what we've got loaded up here for the folks watching on YouTube is courtesy of PFF. It's their top free agents like ranking, basically, with projected contracts, PFF grades and ranking, position rankings through the past couple of years. And we're just going to kind of attack it from a fantasy standpoint. So, all those of us in dynasty leagues are the only ones creating and consuming fantasy content in February. So, it's going to be from a dynasty lens, of course. Real dynasty leagues play with IDP. So, the very first player that we've got here is from the Super Bowl champs, Kansas City Chiefs defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman, Chris Jones. So he is a free agent. PFF projecting a 4-year, $30 million per year average contract for the lucky team to sign him. Now, 4 years at age 29. He's 29. He's going to be 30 into the season. Giving a 30-year-old interior defensive lineman a 4-year contract seems a little lofty there, Matt.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, he bet on himself this year, right?
Yeah.
And it worked. Like he had a heck of a year. I mean, he was so dominant in that Super Bowl. Like he made himself a lot of money.
Facts.
Yeah, I'm not as afraid at that age, at that position.
Okay.
Especially interior defensive line. Like I
Yeah.
think he'll still be fine. It's like from a fantasy perspective, like there's not a whole lot of other defensive tackles. I
Mhm.
would want over him, if you already had him, right? If we're talking dynasty, obviously there's younger folks out there that have some bright futures, but Chris Jones is
Mhm.
just a staple at it. He's clearly still very dominant.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if he leaves Kansas City. I'd be a little surprised. Like
Mhm.
someone have to pay him a lot.
Same.
But the amount they're going to pay him means he's going to still get the usage you want him to have from a fantasy perspective. So he's definitely a hold. Like, I mean, at that age, I wouldn't go try to
Yeah.
buy him, right? But if you have him,
True.
like it would still take a lot for me to even sell him. Like it's tough to get one of the top defensive tackles out there. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, it feels like kind of an Aaron Donald career arc,
Mm.
although Chris Jones, he doesn't rack up the tackles. Like he's not like a Christian Wilkins. He's very much like a sack or bust guy for fantasy purposes. Like if he doesn't give you that sack, he's gonna end the day with like one tackle, maybe. So it's kind of tough from fantasy. I do expect him to stay with the Chiefs, which I think would be probably for the best for his fantasy situation. The only other place I was thinking, maybe the Bears. I feel like they still
Oh,
have a lot of
sure.
money to throw around and play around with, especially with whatever they're going to do with their picks and quarterback situation. So that could be an interesting spot if they're willing to throw the money at him. And I feel like he should be equally productive there. Playing with a Montez Sweat would be nice. So that would be the only other fun landing spot for him. But yeah, I mean, dynasty purposes, he's going to be in that just outside of that like top tier because, like you said, I know for a lot of games he is sort of like a sack or bust guy. So definitely. Now, of course, this list, of course, is from a real football standpoint and how much they mean to their team. So of course, for real football, Chris Jones is an elite tier guy. But for fantasy, I think he's more of like a tier 2 type
He's like
guy.
a DT2, yeah.
Yeah,
And I think the main point here is no matter where he ends up, is he's probably going to have the same kind of season, right? So
yeah,
like he's not really
exactly.
landing dependent.
Yeah, I don't see any sort of sharp fall off. I also don't see any sort of crazy increase to his production either. So, all right, our next guy on the list is offense. So we're hopping right to offense. Mr. Kirk Cousins, quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. At 35 years old, he'll be 36 when the season starts. Projecting a 2-year, 35 million per year, which right now that's like not that bad. So remember, the cap increased almost like what, like 20, 30 million, somewhere between 20 and 30 million dollars. So like a lot of these crazy quarterback contracts, at least for this year, aren't looking so crazy. And Kirk, I think, could have a wide array of suitors this year.
It's crazy that amount of money is being thrown out there for someone that's not even that good, right? Like, I mean, obviously he's fine. He's
Yeah,
fine quarterback. He's been in the league forever. You know who he is, right?
yeah,
Like that's so much guaranteed money. Uh,
yeah.
but again, from the dynasty
Cap isn't
perspective,
real.
yeah, cap is not real. The cap is crap. Uh, from a football perspective, though, I mean this is one where to me it's very landing
Mhm.
zone dependent, right? Like if he sticks with the Vikings, obviously you love that would indicate they're probably keeping Justin Jefferson. I know there's a lot of talk out there they might be trading him, they'll be shopping him, which would be crazy.
Yeah,
But, you like what you saw from Jordan Addison there. Like in
yeah.
general, they're going to be a pass heavy offense. It's all the reasons why we
Mhm.
liked all of those playmakers last year. So if he
Mhm.
signs with the Vikings, he's still that probably QB2 can flirt with QB1 range any given week. It helps when you're throwing the ball to a Justin Jefferson.
Yeah,
But like
yeah.
if he goes to like where else could he go? Like the Falcons would be a
Yep.
tasty one. I mean,
There's a few.
all these quarterbacks are kind of tasty. Um,
Yeah.
Going to the Falcons because those playmakers. Uh,
Yeah.
like where else? I mean, the
The,
Steelers, I guess, but
right.
it doesn't project to be as pass heavy as you'd want it to be. The Patriots, God knows what the hell that's going to look like. So,
That would be
uh,
interesting.
yeah, I think from fantasy perspective, I like the not having to learn a new offense or build the
Yeah.
new scheme. So, from fantasy perspective, I hope he stays with the Vikings.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of money for a team that all of a sudden you're dealing with a really good young Packers team, a Bears team that has a bunch of really high draft picks. Obviously, they weren't that
Yeah.
great, but like I think there's a lot to like where the Bears are going,
Mhm.
and then a Lions team that looks to be legit. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what the Vikings decide to do.
Yeah. If they want to compete, they'll re-sign him. If they're looking for a rebuild, then yeah, they'll probably let him walk. Another dark horse team that could be fun could be Vegas, the Vegas Raiders.
Oh,
We know they are
ooh.
no, they love to spend money. So that would be cool for anybody hanging on to the last couple relevant years, possibly of Devontae Adams. Well, boy, obviously the Justin Jefferson managers want Kirk to stick around in Minnesota. And I think for his fantasy value, that would ultimately be best. Atlanta's the sexy pick with the playmakers and the weapons, but like you mentioned, learning new offense and stuff, it might not be quite as lucrative as we think.
Right.
Obviously, Pitts and London and Bijan managers would definitely want Cousins landing there, but I think for Cousins managers, Superflex managers, and all that, we probably want him to stick in Minnesota there. So.
Agreed.
All righty. Number 3 is Josh Allen, the
Ooh.
defensive player for the Jacksonville Jaguars, the edge rusher. Certainly made himself some money this year. No coincidence that he had a record year for sacks in a contract year, right? So I feel like he's not going to be back in Jacksonville. And I just pray that whoever does land him just, uses him properly as that, premier edge rusher. Um, because we've seen guys like Bradley Chubb be misused before, and I'm just really scared of that happening. So I again wouldn't hate to see him return to Jacksonville, where he just put up a career year. But I think I just have a feeling they're going to let him walk. Trayvon Walker has been coming along. He quietly had 10 sacks last year,
Mhm.
playing with Josh Allen. So they might be ready to just say, we invested the number one overall pick in Trayvon Walker just a couple years ago. So we're ready to hand him the reins. And hey, Josh Allen, somebody's going to pay you because of the season he just had. So yeah, I'm just hoping he doesn't land somewhere where they screw up his skill set. That's all.
Yeah, 100%. And PFF is predicting that he's going to be tagged. Earnestly, 24 million
Yeah,
of that kind of production is not bad. And if you're
true.
watching on YouTube, you see his ranking, right? In terms of edge rushers in the last 3 years, he's been really good. So in
Yeah.
2021, 15th, 2022, 7th, last year, 10th. Has not always translated into IDP relevance, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
is still an indicator that he's very good at what he does in
Mhm.
proper NFL terms. So obviously, we can't expect 19 sacks again. That's a lot of sacks for anyone, even the TJ Watts of the world. But he
Yeah.
definitely earned himself some money. I mean, I echo your sentiment. Like, we just hope that whoever ends up paying him all of that money, whether it's Jacksonville or someone else, actually uses him again at that
Mhm.
amount of money. I expect them to.
Mhm.
I'm kind of leaning towards someone like a New York Giants, like
Mhm.
someone that's kind of out of nowhere, right? But
Yeah.
like the Giants obviously like what they have in Kayvon Thibodeau. Aziz
Yeah.
Ojulari has not done jack.
Mhm.
But Dexter Lawrence is still pretty good on that line, right? So like
Mhm.
pairing, I feel like if you are the Giants whose offense is going to be kind of questionable for a minute to come,
Mhm.
because who knows
Yeah.
what Daniel Jones actually is. I know they paid him a bunch, but like I feel like pairing like a Kayvon Thibodeau with a Josh Allen with a big like that being their big free
Mhm.
agency move, I think could be spicy. Um,
Absolutely.
so so again, I mean the uncertainty of where he's going to go. Like if you're in a dynasty startup,
Mhm.
like we are right now, where
Yeah.
because we're degenerates, I kind of really like him because he's going to get
Yeah.
paid and he's going to get paid, get played.
Yeah.
So and those rankings don't just happen out of nowhere. So he's obviously
Yeah.
very good.
Right.
Maybe didn't live up to his draft capital, but he's a
Yeah.
solid professional who's probably a lock for double digit sacks each and every season. So
Absolutely.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, the tag kind of makes
Yeah.
sense. It's a Jacksonville team that wants to win now, but
Yeah.
it's a lot
True.
of money. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Like you said, when they just invested a number one pick, and essentially what they're hoping is a clone for
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen. So yeah, I'm a little more skeptical over him returning, especially on the tag there. But yeah, I mean, crazier things have happened. So that would probably be best for everyone if he came back. So speaking of tags, the first one that's already happened, Mr. T
Mm-hmm.
Higgins returns to Cincinnati on a 1 year franchise tag deal. We're certainly going to hope for better health all around on that team. Major disappointment
Oof.
fantasy year for pretty much everyone outside of Joe Mixon, I think, on that offense. Everyone was labeling Mixon as a bust going into this year, and he's about the only one that proved his worth from where he was being taken. So we're going to need the Bengals to get healthy here, but if they can, you see Higgins kind of going in the wrong direction there. Ranked ninth in 2021, 14th, 2022, 54th, albeit during an injury-plagued season this past year. So we're going to hope to see that trend turn around. But I still am pretty high on Higgins, especially sticking in Cincinnati. I think that's really good for him. So yeah, I think he's still, a very fine tier two ish, fantasy wide receiver two, for sure. So I think this was one of the better outcomes for him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that offense really needs a healthy Joe Burrow because he's so good
Yeah,
when he's healthy, right? And obviously Higgins had his own health issues too, but like that entire
yeah,
offense is like lived and died by Burrow, and what Jake Browning just wasn't it last year
yeah.
when he had to go fill in. So
He's all right for
projecting,
fantasy.
yeah, it's true. But so projecting some health there. I still
Yeah,
think he's a wide receiver too. You can probably get him closer to the wide receiver. Oh, I don't even know if that's true. I don't even know if that's true. People are still so bullish on T Higgins, and I'm just waiting
yeah.
for it to actually come fully
It's
together to warrant the draft capital.
yeah,
Um, but then I'm trying to think on top of my head, who would I like more at that wide receiver two spot? It's like, no, Higgins is probably right.
right.
But like,
He's like a
would you rather have T Higgins or Puka Nakua next year?
oh, definitely Puka
Yeah,
for sure.
because he's one that I'm like he's a wide receiver two that people are going to go after at wide receiver one cost. Um,
Let me see where
uh,
I got.
what about Devonte Smith or Devonta Smith?
Ooh, I think I'd rather have Higgins in that one.
Okay, I think I agree with you
Uh,
there.
let me see. Okay, so we've got him right around. Uh, right above him is Cooper Cup,
Mm-hmm.
Jackson Smith and Jigba, Chris Olave, Drake London, and okay, so and those are kind of the end of the. You could sort of make a case for them as being your fantasy wide receiver one. Like T
Yeah,
Higgins is literally the start of the wide receiver two
hundred
tier for
percent.
dynasty leagues. Because then right under him, we've got DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, DK Metcalf, Stephon Diggs, the likes of there, all these guys who are kind of in the same tier there. So yeah, it's a very interesting uh, spot for Higgins to be at.
Yeah, and I think that spot's exactly right, right? Like he'll have some wide receiver 1 weeks,
Feels right.
hopefully, but like I feel like the way we're talking about him, I've heard some people talk about him as like, oh, he's a wide receiver one, he's a top 10 guy.
Mhm.
Like, I don't think he is, and that's okay as long as we draft him accordingly, right?
Yeah, yeah. Just don't reach.
Just don't
That's
reach,
yeah. I
just
think
don't
that's
reach.
the message. So.
Yeah,
All right. The next guy we've got is a draft classmate of Josh Allen. So Brian Burns, the edge rusher for Carolina Panthers, also up for contract this year. They are projecting a tag as well, or did they already tag him? No, right?
I don't think
That's
they
what they're
did already.
projecting.
I think they're projecting that. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's what they're projecting. Um, God, I hope that doesn't happen for him. I just want him to go somewhere where he's got a chance to actually start winning some football games. He's been a little frustrating. Um, you can see there the rankings like aren't all that great. Uh, I'm actually shocked by the 2021 number 111 edge rusher. That's not great. Improves quite a bit, but still not as high as you would have thought to see him in 2022 at number 44, and then this past year number 34. And I think that goes similarly for fantasy. You know, people were at least often taking him in startups as their number one defensive lineman or defensive end or edge rusher. And I don't think he's that. I think he's the T Higgins of edge rushers. Like
yeah,
he's
yeah.
an incredibly solid number two, but I'm not sure. You know, maybe the changes if he gets a change of scenery at some point that can unlock him. But as long as he's stuck on this, just kind of the aura of this shitty Panthers team, I don't think he's going to get much higher than what we saw this past year.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, I don't see a world where the Panthers they'll have to trade him. I think they're going to tag him and or trade him because that's a team that you're still trying to fill seats. Like you need some playmakers, and like Burns has kind of been their guy, on defense. Making those big splash plays. So I don't expect him just to let Burns leave for nothing, right? So the
Yeah.
best case scenario, I think, for his fantasy stock is to be traded to a good team where there's someone else for, offensive lines to key in on. But yeah, yeah, I think you nailed it. I think expecting sort of edge two numbers for him with those
Yeah.
weeks where he can go up. Like I think he's a better best ball player than,
Yes.
than, than an every week player.
Spot
Which
on.
was like with like most edge and defensive tackles
True.
are that right? Like
True.
it's an easy thing to
It's
say.
hard to get
Um,
consistency.
but like I mean, like this nice write up said, like Burns sucked in the
Yeah.
first half. Like he did
Yeah.
nothing. Like if you drafted him as your edge one, like you were kind of screwed, right? Then he turned on the second half. Um, but yeah, I think targeting him as your edge two, you're gonna feel pretty dang good.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, we're going to take a break here to let you guys know about our sponsor. So, the official sponsor, the IDP Plus podcast, is a little company called Trophy Smack.
Ooh.
They're one of our favorite companies, and if you're a person that's consuming content at this time of the year right now, you need some Trophy Smack in your life here. Cool ring I won from a fantasy league from the Fantasy Football Expo. Like they've got so much cool stuff. My home league of 20 plus years just transitioned to one of their trophies. So if you do have a league that you need a ton of room for champions to be put on, they have that available for you. You can do yearly trophies that are awesome, championship belts if you're a wrestling guy like I am. They have it all. They have toilet bowl and fantasy loser merch, leotards, as my guy Matt so
Mm-hmm.
fashionably demonstrated not too long ago. Like they just have everything.
Yeah, they're great partners. They're great people, and they have
Yeah.
great products. Like I'm looking at
Yeah.
some wall art right here. Reserved parking for fantasy football commissioner's zone. Like it's just all just really good quality stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's all customizable too, so it's not just fantasy football. I
Yep.
know we talk about football here, but it's fantasy baseball season picking up. Your fantasy
Mhm.
basketball championships are coming to a close, presumably.
Mhm.
Anything and everything you could want. They're great to work with. Go get them. Use code IDP uh,
Guys. I
IDP
think
guys.
it's
So
still
IDP
guys.
guys. It is still IDP guys.
We
We're
haven't
gonna
transitioned that
yeah,
quite yet.
we gotta transition that one. But so presently, code IDP guys to get a free championship ring with your purchase of a belt or a trophy. Cannot recommend them enough. Yeah,
This is
I
what
got.
your ring will look like, and this has got some weight to it. Like
Oh, it's legit.
this will hold down some papers in the wind. Like this isn't like a cheap like quarter machine plastic ring. This is made of metal and it's heavy. So
No, it's legit.
yeah, we love the folks over there at Trophy Smack. Awesome to have them as a partner. So appreciate them. We're gonna keep going here with interior defensive lineman from the Baltimore Ravens, Mr. Justin Matabuke. So Mr. Matabuke came out of nowhere to post a monstrous season. Finishes the number 10 ranked defensive interior after previous years being 53, 65. And I'll guarantee you, even before then, he was even worse. So he was a waiver wire darling gem. Nobody was talking about this guy. And he just, similar to Josh Allen. Now, well, sort of similar. He broke out in his contract year. We'll call it that way. Now, Josh Allen had been very much relevant, previously, but my Buke, even in your DT required leagues, was completely not relevant for fantasy purposes until this year. So those guys kind of worry me sometimes a little bit. Do they
Scares me.
save it all for the contract year? Are they going to be able to keep it going? Especially, I feel like uh, he's not going to be back with the Ravens. So a new system, are they going to use him properly? Was it just a perfect storm with all the talent he had around him this year and the usage he was getting? So a lot of question marks around Matabuke. He is definitely a sell high candidate for me in your dynasty leagues. I think we mentioned it on our last show. Like this is a perfect example where I would try to flip Matabuke for like a Dexter Lawrence and maybe
Mhm.
like a late or last round rookie draft pick, for leagues where defensive tackles, even matter that much. So yeah, that's where I'm at with him.
Yeah, the fact that he waited his last year in the contract, it's not like he waited. I'm sure he was always trying, but like the fact that he had this huge breakout, I'm like, there's almost no way. I can't imagine Baltimore keeps him. Like they have Travis Jones in the wing.
Yeah,
Like they've
it's
been
going to be
bringing
tough.
him up.
Yes,
Like the
good
Ravens just
name.
like churn out defensive talent, right? So why would they
Mm-hmm.
spend $23 million a year, which is what the prediction is, for him, right?
Yeah.
Like they turned, I think they turned this probably a DT3 fantasy wise into this stud this year, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
But I'd much rather have and pay the player that we're going to talk about next at 7, the Madu Buke. Oh, God, these names. So again, I think sell high is right if you have someone willing to give you pretty much anything for him because there will be another guy or two like this next year that are gonna probably be on your waiver wires right now that you can go pick up, and be relevant. But because who knows where he's gonna go and who knows if it's gonna
Right.
be successful. Like it's obviously difficult to project that at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm more keyed in on those rankings, right? So at least Josh Allen was, still top 15 every year in terms of pass rush grade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus, uh, Justin M. Uh, just turned on this year. So
Yeah.
I think obviously the best thing fantasy wise from to stay with Baltimore to know how to use him. They obviously figured something out with him. But I am, I'll say buyer beware
Yeah.
in startups.
Just a little cautious. I don't want to let that name you mentioned go without
Hello, Travis
checking. So
Jones.
Travis Jones, I think if Matabuke is gone, I think we could absolutely see the same thing happen with Travis Jones. He's been quiet, pretty irrelevant for his first couple of years. They're both third round draft picks, but Jones from the 2022 class, Madubuike from 2020. So if he's gone, I think Travis Jones is an excellent target for your deeper DT required or like deeper salary cap leagues. I think we could absolutely see the same exact story play out with Travis Jones if Madubuike is out of the way and on a different team. So awesome name to bring up there. All right. Number 7 on the list, another defensive interior guy, Christian Wilkins. You know, he ain't going nowhere. Miami ain't letting
He's
him
not
go.
going anywhere.
Yeah, this is going to be a quick one. He's great. He's a tier 1 guy. The tackles are insane for an interior lineman. So, you know, his sacks are always going to be fluky, but they're literally just cherries on top. So he remains in the elite tier of not only real NFL, he's one of these rare guys who's elite for real NFL and fantasy purposes at being an interior lineman. It's just insane how important he is to the run defense and how many tackles he gets on that interior there. So yeah, Wilkins, I really don't think he's going anywhere, and he remains an elite fantasy option for sure.
Yep, I want him so badly on the Patriots, but it's not happening. He's gonna be on the Dolphins.
Maybe after this year, after the franchise tag,
if they can't figure it out, but
you've got a shot.
He's so good. He's just so dang good.
Yeah, he's an easy one to talk through. Another guy that's probably going to be pretty easy to talk through. So our first defensive back on the list, Antoine Winfield Jr. from the Tampa Bay Bucks, the safety. I mean, look at that, number 2, number 4, number 2. He's one of the, you talk about consistency from the defensive back position and how it pretty much is non-existent. I mean, this is one of the rare guys that it is existent. Even now, 2022 was one of those sort of lumpy years where the production was down a little bit, but he bounced right the heck back this year to an amazing season, and conveniently yet again during a contract year. So yeah, I would be shocked if he doesn't stay in Tampa Bay as well. So they're predicting franchise tag probably right there, and if you're going to spend up on a defensive back, this is one of the guys, Antoine Winfield, that it actually makes sense to do that. Even though, as a general strategy, we don't advocate for that.
We do not. In our startup dynasty draft that we're both in, we're two of the few that waited until the very end to going defensive back. It's like we spent too much time together. But yeah, I mean, look at Antoine Winfield Jr.'s age, right? He's 25 and a half. He's been elite.
It's crazy.
This was kind of a breakout year from an IDP relevancy perspective. Yeah. Like he really crushed it this year. But like, look at those rankings, that consistency. Like this is one of the guys, right? And he's younger, right? Because like, who else do you have up there? Like Derwin James is getting older. He's still the god at DB, right? But you can wait a little bit, get yourself Antoine Winfield Jr. He's young. He has more proven ability to be consistent over more time than like, a Jaquan Brisker or a Jalen Petrie. So it's like, I if you're going to spend the sticker price on one of these defensive backs in Dynasty, I think Antoine Winfield's your guy.
Yeah, he's part of that elite tier 1 god tier with Derwin and probably Kyle Hamilton. That's about it.
Hamilton too. Yeah, especially obviously Hamilton. We know where he's going to be for the next little bit, right? Yeah. So he's probably 3, and that's like if you're going to wait, like, or you want one with elite guys, like take whoever's left. Take the third one. Take the third one and let someone else pay more.
Exactly,
and go from there.
And you can see the 2022, now we're looking at it, they've got the snaps listed here. Only 833 snaps. I can't remember if he missed games that year, but probably, or maybe it was just an odd year when it came down to the defense and snaps played. So, that's, opportunity is king. Linebackers, safeties, the amount of time that you're on the field, is important and is going to affect your fantasy. So yeah, I still think the consistency is there for him.
Yeah, he was hurt. He only played in 13 games. Granted, in 2021 he only played in 13 games. Playing 97% in 21. He only played 88% in 22. So I, based on his production though, and the fact that he's back up to 98%, I'm assuming, I don't remember what the injury was, but I'm assuming it was serious enough that they took it easy with him.
Yeah, totally. All right. Next guy on the list is a corner. I probably won't spend too much time on corners, but
Make them
uh,
relevant.
yeah,
Make them
yeah. If
relevant.
they are relevant, you've got Jalen Johnson from the Bears, and we'll talk about at the same time L'Jarius Sneed next on the list. So two
Love it.
corners that are up for free agency. I think Sneed could be headed somewhere else. There's his Instagram. I believe he commented or did a post and he put the eagle emoji in there. So I mean, I would probably cream my pants if he landed with the Eagles. Like we could use a L'Jarius Sneed for sure. So that would be amazing, and I think perfectly fine for fantasy purposes too, because Eagles love to be in shootouts. So yeah, that would be awesome. Jalen Johnson for the Bears. You probably want him to move on, but it looks like they're predicting the franchise tag. You would love to see him maybe land on a team that likes to get in shootouts because he was very, very good for fantasy as well at the corner position. So both these guys, I think, it would be nice to see changes of scenery for each of them.
Yeah, I mean, Snead is my CB1 Dynasty cornerback, and
Okay.
cornerback required, even with the potential change in scenery, because
Yeah,
he's done it, such for a few years in a row, being really good. I think he actually would take a hit if he moved, because the Chiefs clearly know what they're doing. Like both he and Trent
that's
McDuffie
true.
were super relevant there in Kansas City, and you know what you're getting with them. So if he were to move, I don't know if he's going to be used in the same way. Is he going to be going up against the slot receivers again? But like he was kind of, even this year with Trent McDuffie taking over more of that slot corner role, Snead was
Mhm.
still making enough plays that it was fine. Part of that was probably because the Chiefs' offense wasn't as good, so there's more snaps for them.
Right.
But yeah, Jalen Johnson is one of those guys that I think in most of your leagues is like a classic example why you should stream cornerbacks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna
Yep.
spend a whole lot of money on someone like a Jalen Johnson because
Mhm.
you can find someone else like him on waivers, right?
Yeah.
So like, I don't go and overspend for him. Obviously, he's very productive. I mean, number four in terms of the
Yeah.
PFF ranked cornerback this year. That's awesome. He's gonna get paid. Uh, yeah, I mean, sticking with the Bears, is anyone excited about the Bears? Like not until they decide what they're doing with Justin Fields. Like just
Not
get it over
outside of
with.
Chicago.
Do what you're gonna do. Um, uh, but like Snead's one that if you're gonna go cornerback, he has the track record to warrant if you want to spend the price. Which again, at least I don't advocate to do it. But if you do, he's one of the guys you can go for at the top of the cornerbacks. But like Jalen Johnson, you can like wait forever, and I don't think that's a common name unless you're playing with
Yeah.
a bunch of fantasy
Oh,
diehards, right? Like
yeah.
he's someone that you can just wait forever, pick him up, and
Yeah.
be happy.
Yeah. You can get him on waivers and even deeper
Yeah,
startup. So,
yeah,
yeah, that's true about Snead. Potentially changing teams. What I mentioned about other players, if they screw up his usage and his skill set, the Chiefs do like to deploy him and McDuffie in very unique ways. They rush the passer. They just uh, the scheme and everything is very unique. So yes, a very true cautionary tale of leaving and getting screwed up. So, all right, the next guy we're flipping back to offense, Mr. Michael Pittman Jr., wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts, projecting a franchise tag. I think that would be probably best, unless he went to somewhere like Kansas City or something. Um, but yeah, sticking to grow with Anthony Richardson, I think would be in both of their best interests. He's one of these tweener guys, like low end wide receiver two, high end wide receiver three for Dynasty. He's very inconsistent with his production, maybe not to his own fault. A lot of that is the offense, but yeah, he's another one of these just middle of the pack guys that I don't get super excited about, and I'm often like passing and letting them go by me in startups because I just don't get excited about a guy like that. I
yeah.
don't
You
know what it
see, and
is.
you're passing it, and then I'm ecstatic that I'm getting him. So I'm kind of on the
Yeah.
other end of the
All
Pittman
right.
because the shine's off, right? Like he was
Yeah.
supposed to be the
Yeah.
next big thing, and he hasn't become it, right?
Yeah.
So I find targeting him at that like wide receiver like the end of the wide receiver 2, early wide receiver 3 feels right. Like, and I
Okay.
always say this on this podcast, and I will continue to say it. It's like the Logan Wilson pick, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's all expectations, right? It's like he is on an ascending offense, right? Like
Yeah. True.
they locked in JT for a couple years, right?
Yeah.
And then you expect Anthony Richardson to be back fully healthy.
Mhm.
You really like a lot of things that are going on there.
Mhm.
He's definitely a tweener guy who doesn't
Yeah.
have the necessarily the upside that you necessarily want him to have. But it's
Mhm.
kind of like why this year, grabbing like a Mike Evans, it's like he's gonna
Mhm.
be their wide receiver 1, and he's gonna perform pretty dang well. Like, and he's still
Right.
pretty young. So uh, predicting that ascension and predicting that he stays with the Colts, which I think they'd be stupid to let him go. Like, I don't know
Mhm.
why they would. Like, who else are you gonna get? Like, we're already at the 11th ranked free agent wide receiver, and
Mhm.
there's what T Higgins is already franchised. So like,
Right.
save him. Otherwise, the Patriots will pay him, and that'll be a death for him from a fantasy perspective. Uh, but no, I like to target him at that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 turn because it's not sexy. It's pretty boring, but he's a guy that's going to get. I mean, like they say in this article, he's going to have 100 catches. He's going to have 1,000 yards.
Right.
Just kind of
Pencil
lock,
him
pencil him in. Nothing more. He's not going to go
Yeah.
gangbusters like Tyreek Hill, but he's not going to
Right.
tank like T Higgins did. You know what I mean? Pending health.
Yeah.
So
Kind of
uh,
feels like he could end up like a Mike Evans light.
I
If
like the comparison. Yeah.
like he might not, he'll chug along with these 1,000 yard seasons. I feel like his touchdown ceiling is a lot lower than Mike Evans. Mike Evans
Mm-hmm.
had plenty of years of double digit touchdowns. I feel like Pittman is just like this 5, 6, 7, 8 touchdown guy. And if he ever hits 10, it's gonna be like, holy shit. But yeah,
Yeah.
it feels like a
Yeah.
poor man's Mike Evans.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna look up at the end of his career
Yeah.
and be like the classic, like, is he a Hall of Famer? He's like, no, he's not. Then you look at the numbers, you're like, oh well, maybe he didn't win
Yeah.
anything, but like he's been pretty good. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, give me poor man's Mike Evans. That's fine.
Gotcha. All right, next guy is a superstar for the IDP community, edge
Boy,
rusher
wasn't he?
Danielle Hunter from the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, they're not projecting a franchise tag. He is 29 years old. I think that might surprise a lot of people. He's been doing this. He's like one of the most, he's like the Mike Evans of edge rushers. Like he goes under the radar. He's
Yeah.
constantly a value pick. Um, but, he had an awesome year this past year. Concerns about moving teams and schemes has to be in play here. So yeah, I would kind of like for him to be back, but I could also very much, depending what the Vikings do here with Kirk Cousins, I think is really gonna dictate how a lot of these other signings go for them, and if they're gonna let a guy like Hunter walk, I could see it happening.
Yeah. Are they going for it or are they not? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they are, like, you got to expect Kirk Cousins back. You got to expect Hunter back. If
Yeah,
you're not, you let someone like Hunter go because he's been very good for a while. I mean,
yeah,
look at the ranks the last 3 years.
yeah.
22, 6. Is that 18? Yeah, 18. Um,
18, yeah.
like, just consummate professional. I mean, he's getting up to that 30-year-old, barrier where a lot of people,
Right.
you're old now. Uh, but like, again, at the edge position, they can limit snaps, which we'll probably see for him to be super effective in the ones that he's in, right? So
Mhm.
um, I don't know how I'd rank him necessarily in like a dynasty startup because you don't
Mhm.
like the age, but you kind of expect, like, I'm having this balance right now in the league we're drafting, right? Where it's like I want to
Yeah,
kind of win now. Like, I'm not just going to draft young folks because they're young. It's like, no,
yeah.
I think I drafted like Devontae Adams as my wide receiver 3 because he fell to be a wide receiver 3 because people don't like
Yeah.
that he's old. It's like, well, yeah, but
Uh,
he's going to score points in like the next 2 years. Like,
yeah.
like who knows if we're all going to be alive in a couple years, right? So it's like that's
Okay, Kyle Shanahan.
like you gotta draft some people that are going to produce for you right now. And I think Hunter's a primo candidate there, and I think
Yeah.
he made himself enough money this year too that even if it's not in the Vikings, he's going to get that play time. He's going to get his
Oh, yeah.
opportunity. He's going to be just fine.
Yeah.
And just to do this transition nice and seamlessly, it's so funny that we talked about Daniil
Yeah.
Hunter and Michael Pittman as Mike Evans, where
Right.
PFF
Look who's
ranked
next up.
number 13, Mister Mr. Mike Evans.
Yeah, just quickly before we leave, Hunter.
Oh,
The Vikings have a lot of people up for free agency, so I did just want to drop a name,
ooh,
a la Travis Jones to Matabuke.
sure.
Pat Jones is about
Ooh,
the only edge rusher left on the roster who is signed right now, and he showed flashes when DJ Wanham went down, who is also going to be a free agent. Pat Jones, filled in admirably, had a really nice game that when during the game
huh.
that Wanham went down. So just a name to keep out there, super deep league, super deep name, Pat Jones for the Vikings. So just keep that in mind. But yes, here he is. Here's Mike Evans. A 3-year deal for a 30-year-old wide receiver.
To
I don't know.
me, so that's again what PFF is projecting.
Yeah,
That would be to me like the I'm staying in a Bucks jersey until I die. Like
yeah,
if he takes like a team deal for 3 years, like 3 years,
yeah.
23 million for his production is
I
not
guess that's not that
it's
bad.
not
Yeah,
crazy, but like I don't think he takes that deal other than in Tampa. You know,
right. Yeah, who else is going to pay him that much?
no one
So,
else is going to pay him that
um,
much.
and with they're apparently Baker's sticking around. They're working out a deal for Baker. I think he's going to be like, listen, if you're keeping me, you have to keep Evans. Okay, he
Oh
was
yeah,
my favorite target last year, which sucks for my Chris Godwin shares. I was always a Godwin greater than Evans guy, but Godwin just doesn't get the touchdowns like Evans, and apparently the 1,000-yard seasons either. Has had some injuries and whatnot, but. Yeah, I think it makes sense for Evans to stay if they're going to try to sign Baker back as well. So,
I just can't
um,
imagine him in another jersey. You know,
yeah,
I just can't.
yeah,
I can't picture it.
it was weird for Devontae Adams to know, right? It
Yeah,
happened. Like,
I mean, it definitely happens, but
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. No matter what, he's gonna get his touches. You know,
yeah,
from a fantasy perspective, being on the Bucks, I think is the best for Mike Evans. Like if he were to
yeah,
go to, obviously, I mean, anyone goes to the Chiefs will immediately be their wide receiver one,
right,
or I guess two if you consider Kelsey the one there. Um,
yeah,
but like no, I think running back the Evans Baker, like, it was proved effective last year. This is another
yeah,
guy kind of like Pittman that kind of falls to you in dynasty startups because he's old.
mhm,
But again, I will take someone like Evans that's going to produce for 2-3
yeah.
years
Oh,
at
totally.
worst a wide receiver three perspective. Like people
Yeah,
love their shiny new toys. Like give me some
right.
production that I know what I'm expecting.
Yeah, totally. Especially in the best ball. I know we
Ooh,
harp on best ball for IDP purposes, but I think it should be just as prevalent for offense. And Evans is a perfect
agreed.
best ball guy for offense too. All right, next guy on the list is a corner. Probably won't spend a ton of time. It's Kendall Fuller for the Commanders. 29 years old. He's an elite, like close to shutdown guy. So not super relevant for fantasy. He has games here and there. Definitely a best ball only target
Hmm.
in super deep leagues. So other than that, I don't have a lot more on Fuller. He's not really much of a fantasy guy, more of a real NFL guy. For corners, we know that that's the one position IDP that doesn't really translate to points. So not super relevant guy for your IDP teams.
Fact.
So that'll take us right to Leonard Williams, the interior lineman, defensive tackle. Got traded from the Giants to the Seahawks last year. Still pretty productive. Also getting a little bit up there in age. Uh, yeah, I don't know. He's been very lumpy with his production ever since his days with the Jets and whatnot. Um, you see their 2016, those were good. Then last year, 46. So maybe on the downward trend. Yeah, he's not someone I'm super interested in, pretty much no matter where he signs
He
for
doesn't move.
fantasy.
He doesn't move the needle for me
No.
either. It's one of those guys where he could get hot for a stretch, right? Which is why he
Yeah.
played the waivers and like due to injuries or whatever, he'll get the play time you need to be IDP relevant. But
Yeah.
like I don't there aren't see this is a case where there's enough shiny folks, right,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
could have new teams that I'd prefer more. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like this might be a homer, and this is probably a homer, but I'm gonna say it anyway because you're here. You've made it 44 minutes.
Hey,
But
go for
like give me like a Josh Uche in a new system over
it.
Leonard Williams, right? Because like who knows? Like who knows?
Yeah.
I was just thinking like, oh, Uche could maybe go to the Vikings. new scheme. Maybe they'll actually
Ooh,
use him.
trade
Something like
trade
that.
out for Hunter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't know. Like Williams, he's older. He's about to be 30 years old.
Mhm.
Um, hasn't really put it fully together in any consistent capacity.
Right. That's the
So,
thing.
so it's like,
Consistency.
yeah, he's waiver wire fodder.
So he's higher on this list, I think, from an NFL standpoint, but for fantasy purposes,
Oh yeah, and I'm
yeah.
truly speaking from just fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
why he happens to be 16th up here.
yeah.
I think just because he's very good in the run game, but like, yeah, he doesn't get you sacks. He's not much of a pass rusher. He's pretty much a, a big old run stuffer, and for fantasy purposes, that's not what we're looking for. So that could take us right along to wide receiver Marquise Brown for the Cardinals. Now he's going to be an interesting one, projecting a pretty low contract here, just a 1 year deal, not a franchise tag. So, he is small. He's small and fast. Yeah, I've never been a big Marquise Brown guy. Um, you know, Cardinals are projected to probably grab either Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors. So they kind of immediately take over as the number one target, along with the freak Trey McBride, who's off to an awesome start in his career at tight end. So yeah, I see a change of scenery for Marquise Brown. Not exactly sure where, but wherever it is, he's probably going to be that the team's wide receiver 2 or 3, and for fantasy, maybe a wide receiver 3, but more likely a 4 or 5. In my opinion.
Yeah, Marquise Brown, and I don't know the age differential. It's probably closer than I think it is, but like he reminds me a lot of Brandon Cooks, right? It's like a lot of talent. When used correctly, will be decent. Uh,
Yeah.
but like I think it's going to end up being this journeyman, right? So like this 1 year,
Mhm.
12 million a year projection, like that makes sense. Like he kind of underwhelmed with the Cardinals, kind of a
Mhm.
1 year prove it deal somewhere, right? Where
Yeah.
like he's not going to make the money he wants in a big contract because he hasn't produced, right? But
Mhm.
like someone's going to give him a 1 year chance to be good, right?
Mhm.
And like he's so dependent on where he lands because
Yeah.
there are some really bad quarterback teams, right, who don't have playmakers that might
Yeah.
pay him that one
Right.
year thing, right? And he might not produce. He might not produce because they're not putting him in a good spot for
Mhm.
success, right? Or or we talk in a couple weeks or whenever. When's free agency? Mid March.
March,
Um,
like middle of March.
yeah, or it's a 2 year, 18 million, whatever thing with the Chiefs, right? And all of a sudden it's
Yeah.
like, oh crap, now the Chiefs have
Everyone's gonna
Marquise
get
Brown,
excited.
right? They're gonna get super
Yeah.
excited. We'll probably be like temper expectations. Uh, but I think he has the opportunity to be fantasy relevant if he's in the right
Mhm.
spots. Again,
Yeah.
I think best ball is more where I'm going to be going for, other than like
Yeah.
end of redraft sort of bench filler. Like maybe he'll work out, um,
Right.
but yeah,
And
definitely not going to be back in the Cardinals because they're going to for sure grab Marvin Harrison. Uh,
I can't stand guys like Brown in redraft because you'll never pick the right week to start him, and
exactly,
those guys are just not good for my mental health. So
exactly.
I will not be much of a Brown guy outside of maybe best ball, and even then, there's
It'll be
still
tough.
plenty of truthers out there. He's got first round draft capital still. Like there's still plenty of people that are gonna hang on to the name and the coming out of college assessment. So he's not going to find himself on many of my teams in pretty much any format.
Yeah, I just see him being like a Steeler, just like
I, yeah,
just
I
like
was
a
gonna say
Steel.
Buffalo maybe, and people
Oh,
are
I
gonna go
oh a
nuts,
replace for Gabe Davis.
and
Yeah,
people
and
will
people are
go
gonna be
nuts, and he
yeah.
won't be good.
No, I like that compare. I like that. Like he'll be fine, but like he's not gonna be like it's gonna be
Yeah,
what's that dude? Rashad Bateman. Where it's like, oh, he's gonna break
yeah,
out, or even Gabe Davis, right? Like he's gonna break out and like, oh no, he's not. Like no, he's not.
yeah. All right, next guy on the list is back to IDP, the edge rusher Bryce Huff from the New York Jets. So this is an interesting guy. He's got super good grades over the past 2 years, and a crazy high pass rush win rate. However, when that doesn't convert itself to sacks, we don't get points for pass rush win rate. So I always take that with a grain of salt when the guys can't get home. I think So I'll go on a quick tangent here. You've got PFF guys, you've got other guys in the IDP industry who bank on this stuff. But to me, I still think there's a skill set involved in getting home and converting those win rates and converting these pressures to actual sacks. I don't think sacks are quite as fluky as some people would like you to believe. So a guy like Huff is not going to be on many of my teams. Carl Lawson, similarly from the Jets, was a very similar comparison, constantly with good grades from the Bengals. So not, I think his best sack year, he had like 5 sacks or something. So you can win all the pressures you want, but when you're only taking on 5 sacks and multiple years, and that's your ceiling, I don't really care about pass rush win rate or the grades at that point. At a certain point, I think it takes skill to bring down the quarterback. So that's my tangent there. Bryce Huff, a lot of people are going to buy into the metrics. Not me. Sorry.
So here's my issue with Huff. So he did have a breakout year this year in terms of sacks.
Yeah.
He did get 10. He had 10
Yeah,
sacks this year.
Yeah.
But his tackles, 29 combined
Right.
tackles.
Right.
Which if you look at
what's
the
that
previous,
really doing for you?
If you look at the previous years, right? 3.5 sacks with 6 combined tackles in 14 games. 2 sacks with 14 combined tackles. 2 sacks with 16 combined tackles. Right? So like obviously he made this list, so he's good. He is good at what he does, which is providing pressure, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure
and pressure is very important.
People have to scheme against him. When it comes to winning fantasy football, not interested. I mean, even with the tackle floor or ceiling, I guess in this case, like I'm not even interested in him in best ball. Like people, like I know plenty of people that will be super geeked up on getting Bryce Huff because look at the metrics one of these years, and maybe it will be next year. But my guess at the end of his career, we'll look through it and be like, oh, that's an anomaly that the 10 sacks are there. Add the fact that we don't know where he's going to be.
Right.
Like you can screenshot this or whatever when he ends up being on the Patriots, and then I have to be rooting for him like he's super great. Let's pair him with Christian Barmore. It's gonna be great. But like I'm not interested. I'm not interested.
Yeah, I'm certainly hoping he finds a new home because I need my boy Will McDonald to get a shot here. Jermaine Johnson was the breakout guy. Fine. I want Will McDonald playing across from him and getting the opportunities that this year. So
we all have our folks that we can't quit. We all have those bugs.
He's a rookie. He's only going to be here too. Plenty of time to develop. But yeah, I'll be rooting for Huff to find a new home. That's for sure. A guy we don't have to spend a lot of time on. He's pretty DJ Reader for the Bengals, interior lineman. Again, more of a football ranking here. Very good. Supporting the run and things like that, but he's not a pass rusher. And he's also going to be 30 years old. So, he's one of those guys that he's, best ball, maybe he'll give you like 2 or 3 good games throughout the year if he happens to get, I think he gets 2 to 3 sacks a year or so. So, those will be the good games for him. But other than that, just kind of a meh guy, not someone I'm super excited to talk about.
Let's move on.
We'll move right along to someone that you're probably
20 and 21. Look at that. Ooh.
Mr. Kyle Duggar, safety for the New England Patriots, going to be 28 in the season. That I didn't think he was that old. So he's on his second contract. He's going to be 28. He must have came into the league pretty old. So what do you think's going to happen with Duggar there?
I would be shocked if he were not on the Patriots. Like this is the classic.
Okay.
Well, I guess actually, with that being said, who the hell knows, right? Because now that it's like all of my preconceived notions for how we're going to deal with free agency and these players is based off of the Bill Belichick style, right? So who knows what Gerard Mario is going to do? But Duggar, D2. I mean, Off talked about just kind of the captain of that defense without any major linebacker presence, like in the sense of like, over the Patriots history, like the Dante Hightowers, the Mayos, right? The Brewskis, where you have like your captain of your defensive linebacker. We haven't had that. Bentley was great. Device fine, all that jazz. But like Duggar was kind of the captain of that defense. He he came in after McCourty left, who was the previous captain of that defense, Devin McCourty.
Mhm.
Um, he's kind of the heart and soul there. So I would be shocked if Duggar was not on the Patriots. I
Mhm.
kind of agree with what they're saying here, which is a tag, because I'm assuming he's going to
Okay.
want more money than we're going to want to give, a safety,
Yeah.
with so many holes elsewhere. Like there's only so much you can do at the safety position to influence,
Uh-huh.
right? Like I'd rather that money be spent probably on, any of these defensive linemen that can get some
Mhm.
pressure. Um, so with that in mind, I think we have a pretty good idea of what Duggar is as an IDP asset, which is a DB2, right? And there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. Like he had a bit of a down year in terms of production, but he still ended up in the, I think, the upper teens in our pretty balanced scoring in our
Right.
IDP guys invitational. Um,
Mhm.
so I think he's going to be on the Pats. I think he's going to continue to rack up similar stat lines, right? So
Okay.
really nice tackle floor based on what they play him. Splash plays not as consistent with him,
Mhm.
but the Patriots are on defense a whole lot. So he's a guy that I think is a pretty solid bet at that DB2 range. Um, a hold, I don't think you're going to get much for him, so I don't know why you
Yeah.
would trade him. It's not like you're selling high on him; like he's kind of what he
Right.
is. But if you have
Right.
him at a decent amount of money, if you're in a contract league, like
Mhm.
a decent, you a value there, um, or in Dynasty, like there's no reason to get rid of him. And I don't know how he would project on a different team, right? Like
Right.
it's a very specific skill set. I know the Patriots have Marte Mapu there in the wings that I think Belichick was thinking was
Everyone's
going to be like
waiting.
Duggar, right? Like everyone
Yeah.
wants the shiny new thing. Um, but from what I saw last year, I don't think Mapu is this season away from being that guy. So, especially since the Patriots just let Adrian Phillips go uh, too. Like it'll
Yeah.
be Duggar. I think it's going to be Duggar, Jabril Peppers, Christian Gonzalez, and I'm expecting us to sign another good cornerback. Really lean into the defense is what's going to get us any wins if we
Mhm.
get any. So, yeah, there's my tangent on
Totally.
what I think is going to happen.
Hey,
We'll see.
I don't have a whole lot to add there. Yeah, I think the age is a little concerning for a dynasty startup. But yeah, if you already rostered Duggar, then I think he's probably one of those guys that I'm just content riding him into the sunset there.
Right.
So the next guy is another safety, Cameron Curl from the Commanders. Now he's only going to be 25. Uh, they're projecting a 4-year deal, so that probably means with someone else. Um, yeah, Curl has been great as a safety. I don't have a lot on Curl. I think it's gonna be interesting to see where he lands if the Commanders keep him or not. If they don't, I do want to name drop um, Jartavis Quan Martin as a
Ooh, of
really
course you do.
a second rounder. We can't forget that they invested a second round pick in this kid. So that has me leaning towards that Curl is going to be in a new home next year. So as long as he's handed the reins of a starting job, he should be fine from a fantasy perspective. But there is a little bit of risk there that could a Jonathan Owens situation happen where he's got to sort of
Mm,
re-earn his way because he is I think he's either a seventh round guy or an undrafted guy was Curl. So like those types of guys just constantly have to fight every single year, even if they get a contract. I mean, this contract isn't it's 12 and a half per year. So I guess that's pretty good.
yeah.
But
Seventh round pick. Nailed it.
yeah, okay. So yeah, I don't know. You'd like to see him stay, I think, but when I think he's almost landing spot proof. Again, as long as they
Yeah.
don't make him fight for a starting job and kind of hand it to him, then I think he'll remain in that sort of tier two of safeties for fantasy. So
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty much all tackles, right? So he
yeah,
averages about a sack a year. He's
yeah,
had 3 interceptions his rookie year and none since. Like he is
yeah.
pretty much exclusively tackles,
Interesting.
which
I didn't
so
realize
this is
that.
one of those guys that is very scoring dependent. Like if you're in
Okay.
a tackle heavy league,
Yeah.
right? Like I mean, I love Curl. Everyone loves Curl. Like he's
Mhm.
the guy that people usually will draft closer to the 10th overall DB, expecting to maybe have a breakout year. He hasn't had it yet, but that's okay. Like he had 115 combined tackles last year with a sack, 5 passes defended. Like it's good. It's a good year, right? So I do think I like his age. It's very
Yeah,
dependent on where the heck he goes and if they're going to
yeah,
use him in the same way. Because if they put him more, more back and not, in the box, like, and those tackle
yeah,
numbers go down, like he's not going to be worth your investment, right?
right.
So to me, this is one where wait and see where he lands. If he ends up back on the Commanders, that's great. But
Yeah.
to your point, if they're projecting a 4-year contract, I don't know if he's done enough for the Commanders to say yes, this is our guy to
Mm-hmm.
sign. Um, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It's this his landing spot will do a lot to like, oh, we project him to be in the used in a similar way the Commanders used him, versus if he went to, I'm trying to think of a comparison, the Falcons, right, with
Right.
Bates and
Yeah.
Richie Grant, right, where it's like, oh, one of them's gonna have to play further back, right? So who
Mhm.
knows, right? I kind of foresee that sort of thing happening. So I guess I'm
True.
talking myself into being more down on Curl than I have been
Yeah.
in the past. Um, but we'll see. We'll see.
Very, all right. Very cool. All right. Our next guy is back to offense. Calvin Ridley, wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Uh, very up and down season, very streaky, lumpy production season for Calvin Ridley. Year one with Jaguars. I think people were expecting a lot more from him. He'll be 30 during the season. He'll turn 30 during the season next year. So he's, no spring chicken. He missed that year to gambling, and then missed pretty much all of the previous year to an injury. So he's one of these guys that like you selling him is seems futile because you're not going to get anything of substance. And if he, can regain some of what he had in years past, then he's almost worth holding on to. But as far as starting him with any confidence, who knows? So they're projecting a 3-year deal. I think that's pretty lofty with what he showed us this year, which was not a lot. Um, they're saying the Giants maybe.
The Giants make sense. I think these wide
Yeah.
receiver needy teams, like, I mean, he goes to the Giants, he's their wide receiver one. I
Are
will
they going to be
continue
that
to. I
desperate
mean,
to pay him?
I'm biased, but like the Patriots, he's their wide
Yeah.
receiver one. Like if he goes
True.
to the Steelers, he's their wide receiver one. And if you can get him for this like relatively modest deal, right?
Yeah.
Or like if the Jet not Jeff if the Vikings trade Jefferson, which would be
Mhm.
crazy. But like, yeah, go get yourself Calvin Ridley. Like you can talk yourself into that being
Yeah.
fine. Like, I mean, he had a fine year this year, 76 receptions, 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. It's probably the what should have been the expectations going into this year,
Yeah.
right? Um, they just yeah, he didn't meet the
Oh,
people thinking he's to be a wide receiver too.
those stats sound great in rolled up in a year total, but you ask any Ridley manager if they enjoyed having him on their team this year, and I'd be shocked if anyone said yes to that.
That is
He
entirely fair.
he
That's
he
entirely
he
fair.
was so lumpy. So again, if you're playing redraft or even dynasty where you have to set your lineups, like it was rough sledding, trying to pick the right
Yeah,
weeks to
yeah.
start him and
That
avoiding the duds.
that's fair. Like for and in that line, Ridley feels like someone that if you had listened to the rest of our podcast, I'd be like, yeah, let him fall to me. Like I'll take him.
Yeah,
But like I think there's more upside in the Evans and the Michael Pittmans of the falling to you in that wide receiver 2-3 territory than
yeah.
Ridley, where it's like, yeah, he's continues to get older and again very dependent on where he ends up.
All right, rank them in order you would take them in a dynasty.
Hmm.
Let's say tight end premium
Okay.
scoring if he
Okay.
comes back. So do Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram. What order are you taking them in a dynasty startup?
Oh boy. Um. Okay. I would. Oh. Okay. Yeah. I think it's Evan Ingram first.
Okay.
I think it's. Man, it's not that. I'd probably still go Ridley second.
Oh,
I
okay.
I I've never been a Christian Kirk guy.
Oh, see, I was gonna go
Yeah.
opposite. I'm going Kirk, Ingram, Ridley.
Okay. Yeah, I've always
I
been an
love
Evan.
it though.
I love Evan Ingram. Like he's so
Yeah,
underrated, and when he gets rolling, he gets rolling. And
he
I
needs
think
volume, but yeah, it
he
was
needs
nice.
volume, right?
Yeah,
Which is why it's helpful having Ridley on his team because
yeah,
he's Trevor
takes the
Lawrence doesn't
top
pass to
off.
him. What else?
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, Ridley is so because I think Ridley's going to get paid on some team that
yeah,
has no one else, like has no one else, which
yeah.
means he's going to be just fed the ball from some young quarterback who doesn't have
Right.
the means to do anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that.
Fair.
That's why I have him second because I don't think the Jaguars are paying him that money. Like I expect him to go to like a Steelers who are going to go get a upgraded quarterback, right? Or like
Chiefs?
we keep saying the Chiefs.
That would be
The
interesting,
thing
actually.
is, I don't think the Chiefs are going to pay for wide receiver because they don't have
Yeah, I
to.
know.
Like they
Yeah,
proved this year
it's
they're in like
crazy.
they're in the second half of the Patriots dynasty now, where it's like, well, I guess
Yeah.
no, actually no, they did the reverse. They're in the first half, where it's like if
Mhm.
you actually spend money on good defense, like we hated the fact that they paid Drew Tranquil all that money. Right, and it's like, what are you doing? Like he's just your LB3. It's like they don't
Yeah,
care. They want to win football games. Like their defense is so heckin' good that Pat Mahomes just needs to figure out how to score a few times and they win.
yeah.
Right. So I don't know why they changed from that.
All right. We're almost to the end of this page, so we'll quickly get through the rest.
Yeah.
Chidobe Awuzie, the cornerback for the Bengals. I think he's gone. They've got a young crew there in uh, DJ Turner, Cam Taylor Britt, and Mike Hilton. So I think Awuze's out of there. He's older, and again, he's a fringe fantasy starter or rosterable corner in deeper leagues. So I don't have a lot beyond that, except I think he's gone, and I do like the young core there in Turner, Taylor Britt, and Hilton. So
Yeah. Well
nothing.
said.
This one is an interesting one. Chase Young is up for a
Ooh.
deal. Did nothing in San Francisco. I've already moved on in most of my dynasty leagues, thankfully. Yeah, I mean, I think he's just a bust at this point. I
Hmm? It's over. I don't know. Like he needs to have a complete change of scenery and a complete change of everything. But even then,
yeah,
like he had it and still did nothing
yeah.
with the 49ers. So
It's
no,
gonna
I
be
think
some shitty team, probably like the Raiders, who give him a deal.
oh that is
Like,
that's a Raider signing or a Charger
uh
signing. Like
huh.
for sure.
And he'll be terrible. So
Yeah.
yeah, we are out. We are out as a pod on Chase Young here.
Fact.
All right, and we'll finish it with two running backs.
Okay.
Uh, this is an incredible free agent running back class, and they're predicting not franchise tags this year. So Jacobs got it last year. Barkley like sort of got it last year, I think, and
Hmm.
they threw him some extra bucks on top of it. So these two could very likely have new homes. Uh, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see where they end. I kind of want them both to get new homes, to be honest.
Yeah, the market for running backs is so different than
Yeah,
my father's NFL.
it's
Like
it's crazy.
it's so different. Like no one wants to pay these guys because you find people
Yeah,
like a Kyron Williams, right? Was he a fifth round?
yeah,
Whatever he was, and he's like
yeah,
super good. Or like a Pacheco with the Chiefs. Like there's not
yeah.
much draft capital there, but he runs hard and is very good. So why would you spend all this money at running back when you can find someone else to just hand it off to for 200
Right.
carries a year, which makes these two players very interesting from a fantasy perspective, right? Because who will pay them, and then who is also using running backs in a way that they're going to give them enough carries to be fantasy relevant, right? Like
Right.
I both hate what I'm about to say and love it. Like I would love for like the Cowboys to get Saquon Barkley.
Ooh, okay.
Like give Pollard
Yeah,
back
that's
that
true.
because and this is something that I said that I don't know if I've gotten credit for. Like Pollard sucked. Pollard wasn't good.
Yeah,
He wasn't good
yeah.
because everyone's
You're
like he's
right.
gonna be the next guy. He's gonna step in for Ezekiel Elliott. He's gonna be the bell cow guy. No, Pollard's best when he's not the bell cow guy. He can just come
Yeah,
in for those few carries, fresh, and crush it.
I
Like, you're
fell
telling me
for it.
like Saquon Barkley is not a better version of Ezekiel Elliott right now?
Yeah,
Like,
very
that would
true.
be killer for that offense.
Yeah,
Killer, and get the Cowboys fans excited. That would be great for Barkley. Josh Jacobs, I always consider Josh Jacobs like Joe Mixon,
yeah,
maybe not light, but like the same kind of player. So I don't
right.
know who's gonna pay him and where.
That
Like,
I was thinking the Bears. I think he's either going to return,
uh,
or I was thinking the Bears. At least I think that could be a good fit. That's one of the few teams that kind of needs a running back or
yeah,
a
that'd be
decent running
tasty.
back. So I could see that
Or like the
potentially.
Panthers, like, are they just
Yeah,
gonna give up on
they
that
already
Miles
tried.
Sanders? Like, that went so poorly.
He's got a guaranteed contract like for a couple
Ugh.
years, so
Mm,
they made their bed with that one.
ugh.
So I would be surprised if they threw more money at another running back.
What about the Vikings?
Yes, the Vikings I could totally see, and the
Mm.
Texans as well. Are probably
Oh
looking
yeah,
to upgrade.
because Singletary's gone, and
Yeah,
obviously the
and
current
Pierce is
regime did
not
not
good.
like Pierce. So
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah,
yeah.
I
So
think
there's
they
a
need to change the
few.
scenery. I think
Mhm.
it's time. I would lean Barkley stays with the Giants just because the name
Yeah,
recognition, and again
true.
they're trying to fill seats, and like, who else do you have right now on that roster that fills seats? Like, no one.
Yeah.
Jacobs does feel like he's gone, which would mean what? Zamir White
Yeah,
uptick,
Zamir White would be next man up
or the
potentially if
Raiders
they
go
don't
for
draft
like
someone.
a
Or
draft.
yeah, I feel like we're gonna see these guys just kind of play hot potato, like musical chairs. Pollard's probably gonna end up somewhere else.
Mm.
I think there was a couple more guys I think that are due to be free agents, but yeah, I feel like we're gonna just see them swap into different places where it's like, oh, you could just kept the guy you had.
Yeah, and they'll all be about the same as they've ever been, depending on
Yeah,
offensive lines, right? And
yeah,
we'll just go from there.
yeah. So all right. Well, this was a fun one. Let us know in the comments. So we've got a page 2 here to go to.
Ooh,
Let us know in the comments if you'd like a part 2, and we can head on over
ooh.
to page 2. You can see some of the players that we'd be talking about there. There's a nice little mix of IDPs and offense again. So yeah, if you enjoyed this and you want us to keep going, let us know in the comments, and maybe we'll run it back next week or in a week to do part 2 of this free agent analysis, and what we think could impact these players on their signings and fantasy production there. So this was fun. I had fun in this episode, Matt. How about you?
Um, I had an absolute blast. It's always the time for optimism. Like, we have the draft coming up. We have these free agents, uh, free agency in a couple weeks. Like, I don't know. It's the time for, like, oh, what can be? Like,
Yeah,
what can my absolute trash team do? And that's fun in fantasy too, right? Because maybe this asset you've been holding on to in Dynasty is not working out on his current team, but maybe a
yeah,
change of scenery, he'll blow up. So
yeah.
it's always fun talking about projecting where these folks are going to go, and uh,
Mhm,
yeah, no, it's just it's always fun because you can't really be wrong. You can't really be wrong
mhm.
right now. Like, in season, you can be wrong when you're talking about week to week projections. But right now, this is
Right.
all just conjecture. So it's fun thinking about what could happen.
Absolutely. All right. So yeah, you can see it's been on the bottom the whole time. We are still running 10% off any
Ooh.
level of subscription over at the site. Um, idpguys.org, and yeah, use that code IDP Plus Pod for 10% off. Got a ton of great content being pumped out there. Deep dives into positions, tiers, all that good stuff on offense and defense. We are holding true to the Plus name, giving you the best of both worlds. Now, I think we're one of, if not the premier destination for the most well-rounded fantasy site and company for people that play, including IDP players and mix with offense there. So really excited about what we're doing and where we're headed this year. So
Yeah, and I can very confidently say we've never been putting out as much content or
yeah.
as good of content as we are doing right now. So if you've
Mm-hmm.
tried us in the past and you left us, we have so many great things coming up this year. We have our new tools. We have just almost daily articles. Like there's a
Mhm.
lot of really great stuff coming out of our staff. Some of it from
Absolutely.
us, but
Yeah.
but there's a lot of really great stuff happening over at IDP Plus, and you want to be a part of it and get in the Discord. That's really the thing I will continue to hammer.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you like having live answers from people that are just as passionate as you, our Discord's where it's
Mhm.
at. So yeah, come on board.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys soon.
Peace.
Thank you for watching this IDP guys video. If you like this content and you want more fantasy football content, click here. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos to help you master your IDP league, click here to subscribe.